the Highway 94 hitchhiker. It was just after midnight when James, a long-haul truck driver, found himself barreling down Highway 94 in the middle of nowhere. The night was silent, the road slick from earlier rain, and his radio had fizzled out hours ago. That's when he saw her, a young woman in a pale dress standing alone at the edge of the road. Against his better judgment, James pulled over. She climbed into the passenger seat without a word, her skin cold as ice, her eyes hidden beneath the shadow of her hair. She only gave him one sentence, in a voice that barely rose above a whisper. "Take me home." The drive stretched on, the woods closing in on both sides. James tried to make conversation, but she remained silent, staring out the window. Finally, she told him to stop near an old farmhouse that looked long abandoned. When he turned to ask if this was really her home, the seat beside him was empty. The door had never opened. Heart pounding, James ran to the house, pounding on the door, until an old woman answered. When he described the girl, the woman's eyes filled with tears. "That's my daughter," she said. "She died on this highway 10 years ago." James staggered back toward his truck but froze. Through the foggy glass, in the reflection of his own windshield, the girl was sitting there once again, smiling faintly, waiting for him to drive. Story 2. Room 313. Our second story takes place on another lonely night, when a college student named Mark checked into a roadside motel during a thunderstorm. The clerk at the desk, an old man with weary eyes, slid him a key but muttered a warning. "Stay away from room 3113. Mark laughed nervously and went to his assigned room, number 309. But down the hallway, he couldn't help noticing the door to 313, its paint peeling, the metal number plate glinting oddly in the dim light. At 3 a.m., he was startled awake by heavy footsteps in the hall. A whisper rose above the silence, repeating the same 3 digits over and over.
"Who's there?
3. 1. 3. He tried to ignore it, but then his door handle rattled. Gathering his courage, Mark peeked outside. The hall was empty, except for room 313, its door now slightly open. Against his instincts, he stepped closer. The stench of rot poured out, the air thick and suffocating. Inside, a single wooden chair faced the corner. The door slammed shut behind him. And then, the chair turned. A woman sat there, her face hidden by matted hair. Slowly, she raised her head. Her eyes were nothing but dark, hollow sockets, and a smile too wide to be human stretched across her face. She whispered his room number over and over. 3, 1, 3, before unleashing a scream that shook the walls. Mark barely escaped, sprinting down the hallway toward the exit. But as he fled, he glanced back just once. In the window of room 313, she was standing, her jagged smile pressed against the glass. Only then did Mark notice the key still clutched in his hand. The number on it wasn't 309, it was 313. The Silent Passenger. Our final tale belongs to Emily, a waitress heading home after a long shift. The highway was dark, lined with skeletal trees, and her old car heater rattled uselessly. She was fighting sleep when a shape in the rearview mirror made her blood run cold, a man sitting in her back seat. Slamming on the brakes, she flicked on the dome light. Nothing. The seat was empty. Trembling, she drove on, but the sense of being watched never left. Every time she glanced at the mirror, the man was there again, paler, closer, his eyes black and unblinking. At the next light, she saw his grin stretch across the glass. Her knuckles whitened around the wheel. The truth hit her like ice water. He wasn't in the back seat. He was inside the mirror. The reflection itself had become his prison, and he was clawing to get out. The glass rippled like water, and a hand pushed through, brushing her shoulder with fingers as cold as death. Emily screamed, swerving until the mirror cracked, but even in the shattered shards, his face stared back from every angle, still smiling. She finally made it home, shaking so badly she could barely lock her door. Hours later, lying in bed, she let out a shaky breath of relief, until she saw her dresser mirror across the room. There he was again. The silent passenger had followed her home. 3 roads, 3 nights, 3 ordinary people who stepped into something they'll never forget. a girl on a highway who was never alive, a motel room that should never be entered, and a man in the mirror who never leaves once you've seen him. Some stories don't fade with daylight. They follow you home, into your room, into your sleep, and sometimes into your reflection. So the next time you're alone at night and you catch a shadow in your mirror or hear a voice whispering in an empty hall, remember these stories, because maybe they aren't stories at all. They aren't.